Adrian Leonce, Minister in the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development. Permanent Secretaries, Deputy Permanent Secretaries, Chief State Solicitor, members of staff of the Land Settlement Agency, members of the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development staff, former Petrotrin employees, auditors, distinguished guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. A pleasant morning to each and every one of you. Today is a great day, and it will be a great day for former employees of Petrotrin. It is with immense pleasure that I extend a heartfelt welcome to yet another momentous day dedicated to the transparency and fairness. Today marks the third draw for the distribution of lots to former Petrotrin employees, another stride towards the fulfillment of the Honorable Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley's commitment to supporting those directly affected by the closure of the refinery in November 2018. In today's draw, we are thrilled to select 180 applicants through a random process from the pool of eligible former employees of Petrotrin. These individuals will have the opportunity to receive residential plots, and by utilizing the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development's aided self-help housing approach, the government will continue to do its part to assist former Petrotrin employees in their pursuit of stability and prosperity. The Land Settlement Agency, entrusted with the task of developing residential lots, has diligently and unwaveringly executed its responsibilities, providing essential infrastructure and subdividing parcels to ensure a seamless transition for the beneficiaries under this program. Notably, the completed development works all across southern Trinidad, from Guayari to Point Fortin, stand as testament to the agency's sustained efforts in this regard. However, the Land Settlement Agency's invaluable contribution is only part of the story. As with most things, it's teamwork that makes dream work. And it was the collaborative efforts of the Land Settlement Agency, the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries that has been crucial in ensuring this initiative is a resounding success. Today, as we gather to host this draw, we express our heartfelt gratitude for your presence, as your support and involvement bear witness to the importance of this occasion. To all the applicants, we extend our best wishes and urge those applicants still in the pool after today's draw not to despair, as everyone will eventually be successful. Once again, I thank each one of you for being here today and encourage you to enjoy the proceedings as we move forward in fulfilling our promise to the dedicated individuals who once again served Petrotrin. May this initiative pave the way for a brighter and more promising future for all. Thank you very kindly.
Thank you, Chairman Innes, for reiterating the importance and significance of pursuing the kind of synergistic relationships represented here today through the various state entities. Coming next to the lectern is the Minister of Energy and Energy Industries, the Honorable Stuart Young, whose ministry has administrative oversight for the Petrotrin Residential Lot Program. Please welcome Minister Stuart to the lectern. Brother Stuart Young.
Good morning to my cabinet colleagues and I dare say my favorite minister, the Minister of Housing and Urban Development, Minister Camille Robinson Regis, to Senator the Honorable Haji Kazim Hussein, to my colleague and friend, Minister Haji, you're my friend as well, right? Minister Adrian Leons, Minister in the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, to the Permanent Secretaries, Deputy Permanent Secretaries of the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, and the Acting Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries, to the Chairman of the Land Settlement Agency, Mr. Wayne Innes, and all of the staff here from the Land Settlement Agency. And we have, he's no longer newly minted, but the CEO of Heritage, Eric, here this morning with us as well. And most importantly, to you, the former employees of Petrotrin. It would be remiss of me not to just give a very, very brief background of how we arrived here, because I am seeing, unfortunately, in the public domain, the resurfacing of a lot of misinformation. Petrotrin, when we came in 2015, was really in a state of hemorrhaging, unfortunately, and of course contained the refinery operations, exploration and production, and then the sale of the refined product, the fuels, from the refinery. As you all know, for a refinery to operate, you need the input of the crude. And our crude oil production had dropped significantly at that time. In fact, Petrotrin, the entity which still exists despite people trying to rewrite that history, is currently running about 420 million US dollars, which is approximately 3 billion TT dollars, in short-term debt that came out as a result of having to purchase crude to put into the refinery. The refinery, of course, was at a stage where, unfortunately, it was unprofitable, and when we came in, we had to write off almost $5 billion of debt that had risen out of the refinery that put us in an insolvent state. But you, the workers, are the ones who had to shoulder a lot of the difficulty. And we, the citizens, thank you for the jobs that you all did before, but also what you've continued to do as being part of the social fabric of Trinidad and Tobago. So this morning is about thanking you. A decision was taken that what the government decided to do at the time, on the advice of the board of Petrotrin, we made about $2.7 billion in cash payments to the former employees of Petrotrin, which was over and above what legally we were obligated to do. And that was part of our package to you, the former workers. But the cabinet also took an important decision at the time to offer to former employees the opportunity of either agricultural lots of land of 2 acres or residential lots if you were first time and you didn't own a residential property of 5,000 square feet. So I'm pleased today, and I'd like to thank my colleagues at the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development for doing what you all have done, and the Land Settlement Agency for getting this done as we continue our obligation to the former workers of Petrotrin. It is an obligation we take very seriously, and I hope that we will be able to speed it up to make sure that everybody gets their fair share. So this morning, it is again us, the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, telling you thanks for what you did at Petrotrin, and then now being able to present you with, I heard, 180 plots of land this morning, and hopefully we will continue rolling that ball along. So this morning, it's all about you all once again, and I thank you all for taking the time out to come here today, and I thank my colleagues for the hard work that they've undertaken to get this done, and you all continue to have the full support and commitment of the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries. So, without further ado, I thank you all for your attention, and I look forward to seeing you up on stage receiving what the people of Trinidad and Tobago through the cabinet decided was also to be part of your package. Thank you.
Thank you kindly, Minister Young. And so well put. So that with that, we'll now have our feature address. And to deliver that, I now invite the Honorable Camille Robinson Regis, Minister of Housing and Urban Development. I ask you to join me in welcoming her.
Thank you very much, Ayinka. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy to be here this morning and to be able to share this time with my favorite minister. Adrian, I know you're getting nervous. You don't know who I'm going to call. My favorite ministers. But my favorite minister, and who I consider one of my mentees, Honorable Stuart Young, and the minister in the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, who I am also, I think, mentoring, Honorable Adrian Leons, and the Honorable Senator Kazim Hussein, who I will not mentor because he has been in the governance industry through local government and then moving into this position. So I don't need to mentor him, but I'm mentoring all the others. I also am happy to have our Permanent Secretary here with us, the Acting Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries, the Deputy Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries, the Deputy Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, the Deputy Chief State Solicitor of the Office of the Attorney General and Ministry of Legal Affairs. And I took the opportunity to mention all these functionaries because this is a collaborative approach as we move to achieve the mandate of the government of Trinidad and Tobago as it relates specifically to the undertaking that we gave that part of the settlement package for the former Petrotrin workers would be the distribution of agricultural land and land for housing. And we have been working assiduously to ensure that this is in fact a reality. So I am very specific in mentioning these officers and my cabinet and ministerial colleagues because we see this as a duty and we see this as an undertaking born out of the vision of the Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley. I also take this opportunity to mention the chairman of the Land Settlement Committee and the acting chief executive officer of the Land Settlement Agency, who is our corporate secretary. I'm very happy to see Mr. Eric Keskula, who is the CEO of Heritage Petroleum, and Mr. Quentin Thomas, and other members of the Petrotrin and Heritage families. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being here. For us, this is indeed an absolute joy as we are going to deliver 180 fully developed residential lots to you, the former employees of the now restructured Petrotrin. As has been said before, this government, under the stewardship of our Prime Minister, the Honorable Dr. Keith Rowley, took the necessary step to cease refining operations at Petrotrin and to restructure the rest of its operations. This government was not unmindful of the dislocation that could result and would result from this momentous decision, and therefore, we were equally committed to ensuring that the employees be provided with as soft a landing as possible. One feature of that soft landing was the provision of fully developed residential lots or agricultural lots to former workers at Petrotrin. It was specific because we felt it was important that land ownership be part of what our government did as we restructured the Petrotrin, and as my colleague, the Minister of Energy and Energy Industry said, it was also to ensure that we showed you the gratitude for your work at Petrotrin. And as I determined what I needed to say today, and to distill the emotions we are all experiencing this morning, I turned to Nobel Prize winner V.S. Naipaul. And he said in his award-winning novel, A House of Mr. Biswas, and I quote, "And now, at the end, he found himself in his own house, on his own half-lot of land, his own portion of the earth." Mr. Biswas's search for a home of his own in a metaphorical search for identity for a man living in a colonial structure. Mr. Biswas was never truly feeling at home anywhere, because to him, every place he goes feels as though it is owned or controlled by someone else, whether that is Mrs. Tulsi or the British Empire. His search for a home of his own is a fight against the identity imposed on him by the structures of colonialism. Reminiscent of our struggle for independence, Dr. Eric Williams led our battle to ensure that we received in Trinidad and Tobago our just due. What is taking place this morning is not new. However, under the PNM government, we have a philosophy that land cannot be for a few, but it must be for all. Ladies and gentlemen, this government's track record speaks for itself, as we have moved zealously over the past few years to deliver on that promise. Today, we take these former employees one step closer to realizing their dream of home ownership. This random draw will benefit 180 former employees. This is the action of a government that puts people first, nurturing people as our greatest asset. Indeed, I believe I speak for all my ministerial colleagues in saying that we are all extremely proud to be part of this Keith Rowley-led administration. I am confident that the land being allocated will make an enormous difference, not just in your lives, but in the lives of your children and generations to come. What did it take for us to get to this point? The development of these residential lots was not simply about land. It was also about housing and development. It was also about agriculture and food security. The government first had to do its due diligence to identify suitable land, and in March 2020, Cabinet approved the policy framework for the distribution of residential lots or agricultural plots to former Petrotrin employees. After this, the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development and the Land Settlement Agency invited persons to submit their applications for residential land under this program. We received 2,816 applications, with approximately 50% of the applicants indicating that they were not property owners. Further due diligence led to an even further shrinking of the list from 1,493 persons to 1,207 qualified applicants. As we said, we have had 3 draws before today. And today, the 180 applicants who are selected will be added to the number of persons, over 250, who already have lots. These lots have been developed at an average cost of $180,000 per lot, and this is a major investment in our people. And today, as members of the government, we stand proudly, for this is when we see the convergence of policy and execution. Ladies and gentlemen, you may recall that the termination benefits to the sugar workers also included land, either residential or agricultural, in addition to monetary benefits. Caroni 1975 Limited owned large acreages, and thus the Patrick Manning-led administration, of which our current Prime Minister and I were a part, were of the firm view that the termination benefits should include land ownership. A similar policy operated in this Keith Rowley-led administration. Petrotrin owned large acreages of land, and who better to obtain that land, or some of that land, but those former employees who qualified to now become landowners. A rightful benefit to this country's former sugar workers, a rightful benefit to this country's former oil workers. Two major industries of this country that had to be restructured because of changing economic circumstances to the benefit of the country, but not without a benefit to these deserving individuals. The LSA has advised that lots at La Romaine 2, La Romaine, Felicity 2, Chaguanas, La Philippine 2, Grand Couva, Ponderosa, Golconda, and Glenroy 2 are all at varying stages of development. And as soon as these lots become available, these will be distributed. At this time, lots are available at Pitimon in St. Madeleine, Harmony Hall in Gasparillo, Springle Street in Point Fortin, and Wellington Road in Davie. Will be contacted by the LSA after this draw to continue the process for the allocation of lots. As we celebrate the 180 families who will be chosen here today, we must thank the persons employed at the LSA, as well as our other stakeholders, the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries, who have ensured that this has become a possibility. I also take this opportunity to salute former Petrotrin staff who are here in our live audience, and all others for your service to Trinidad and Tobago. To those who will soon embark on the construction of their new houses, let your homes stand as a reminder of the investment that this government has made in you and your families for generations to come. A significant addition to your objective of building an intergenerational wealth. We do this random draw of lots with, as our Honorable Prime Minister says as he quotes our anthem, boundless faith in our destiny. My ministerial colleagues, permanent secretaries, deputy permanent secretaries, chairman and CEO, and members of the board and members of staff of the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development and of the LSA, CEO of Heritage Petroleum Company Limited, CEO of Petrotrin, former employees of Petrotrin, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for the courtesy of your attention, and may God bless you all, and may God bless our beloved islands of Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Regis, for, of course, reiterating the government's commitment to the former employees of Petrotrin. And, of course, we have now come to the highly anticipated and eagerly awaited draw of potential beneficiaries of the Petrotrin residential lots. This is where it gets exciting for those of you in the audience that are waiting to see those numbers come up. And I'll remind you that if you're not successful today, there are other sites currently earmarked for the program, so your application will be selected for one of these sites in a future computerized random draw. For those of you who are in the session with us this morning, I know your attention will be drawn to the projection, or the projector rather, but while the draw begins and the numbers begin to come up, I will explain the process because it is quite simple with as much detail as I can. A micro-database with a pool of 1,207 applicants will be used to randomly select 180 applicants for the serviceable lots this morning. These applications have already been screened to ensure the applications do not own a part or own land, and that they've met the eligibility criteria for the draw. Of course, this will cause the light, or the lighting rather, in the room to change as well. So those of you who have been pretending not to wear glasses this morning, this is not the time for you to hide them. There we go. Each application has been assigned a unique reference number, which will be shown on the screen as they are selected. An auditor from Bisham Singh & Sons and Company Limited, have verified the pool of applications prior to the draw taking place this morning, and they'll validate that the 180 applicants being randomly drawn today have been selected from the particular pool of applicants. When the draw is complete, the auditor, along with 3 approved witnesses, will sign a report verifying the results of the draw. The reference numbers and names of applicants will be published in the daily newspapers. And so if with the excitement you miss your application number, you can recheck it. These successful applicants will be assigned residential lots as follows. The first 150 names selected will be assigned lots in Pitimon in St. Madeleine. The next 15 will be assigned lots in Harmony Hall, Gasparillo, following which the next 10 will be assigned lots in Springle Street, Point Fortin, and then 5 applicants will be assigned lots in Wellington Road, DB. So I am seeing smiles because familiar names are already being drawn, it would seem. Minister's asking, anybody sees their name yet? Yes? Nice. While the draw continues, again, because we are also broadcasting live on radio, I'll take the opportunity to highlight some differences in today's process. Particularly, today's process differs slightly from 2 previous draws in that in prior draws, the selected applicants were not immediately assigned individual lots, but were invited to a secondary ceremony at which they were allowed to blindly draw for the lots that they'd obtain. This process has now been simplified for increased transparency and logistical purposes. Remember, though, that the persons who are eligible are, of course, citizens or residents of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, and a former employee who received this as part of their termination benefits as a result of the closure of the refinery and reconstructing of the exploration and production activities of 2018, and be a first-time home owner. More smiles are coming up, so more names are coming through. In addition to the areas earmarked for allocation today, there are 6 other sites currently earmarked for the program. Glenroy 2 in Princestown, for which the sod was recently turned for the start of development. Laramine 2 in Laramine. Felicity 2 in Chaguanas, sites A and B. La Philippine 2, Grand Couva, and Ponerosa, Golconda. The residential lots being offered in this program are approximately 5,000 square feet, with all of the required infrastructure and statutory approvals offered free of charge to recipients, with a lease to beneficiaries for a period of 199 years. The program utilizes the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development's existing aided self-help housing approach. As such, the LSA will provide pre-approved housing plans, technical assistance, and oversight for the construction of the houses, and the Trinidad and Tobago Mortgage Finance Company, TTMF, will provide subsidized loans for eligible applicants requiring mortgage facilities to construct their own homes. More smiles and more tense looks. There was a high five, so that's good. As part of the arrangement with the eligible former employees, please note that the cost of land, infrastructural development of the lots, and related administrative and legal costs will be all borne by the state, while all post-lease property-related taxes and fees will be borne by the recipient. Much of what I'm saying will be reiterated to you, so continue to focus on the screen. But for, again, the listening education, or rather the education of the listeners, I shall continue. Potential beneficiaries will receive a 3-month license in the first instance should they accept the offer of the lots, while the deed of lease is being prepared by the Commissioner of State Lands. Remember, following the draw, the reference numbers and names of applicants will be published in the dailies. But those of you in the room, continue to keep your eyes peeled, fingers crossed. While there is no time stipulated to erect a house on the property, the state requires that the lots not be assigned, subletted, transferred, or disposed of within a period of no less than 10 years after the granting of the lease. After the 10-year period, the residual portion of the lease may only be sold subject to the approval of the Commissioner of State Lands. I imagine, though, that is the furthest thought from most persons' minds right now. At this point, we are at number 178. And here we have it, 180. Now that we've come to the end of today's draw, we wish to take this opportunity to congratulate all those applicants who were selected. You are one step closer to your dream of home ownership. We'd like to thank the Ministers Camille Robinson Regis, Stuart Young, Kazim Hussain, and Adrian Leons for being here and sharing in the joy and excitement of the occasion. You can view a rebroadcast of today's 3:30 draw at 3:30 and at 10:30 this evening. Both will be televised. For now, though, I see more smiles. I do see some tense faces, but of course there will be some briefings after, off camera, for those of you in our presence. We'll ask at this point, however, that all the persons whose names have come up or have been drawn, that you please stand. At this point, photographers will certainly take the opportunity. Please remain standing. And as per instruction of my minister, please join us stage side. I'm making certain that they understand I was told, because this also means that my ministers will join us, or ministers rather, will join us stateside as well for the photo op. Congratulations, ladies and gentlemen.
This is TTT. Live for local.
The winning numbers in the National Lottery online draws for Tuesday, 8th August 2023. At 10:30 a.m., play away number 31, Parson Wife, Mega Ultra Ball called. Pick 2, the numbers 25 and 33 in that order. Pick 4, the numbers 1, 2, 5, and 5 in that order.
Greetings and welcome to In-Depth. I'm DK Roster. The Ministry of Tourism, Culture and the Arts recently launched the Digitalization of the Tourism and Creative Sectors, or DOTS program. Cultural Officer 2, as well as Head of the Grants and Sponsorship Secretariat, Keon Francis, he joins us to connect the dots, as it were, showing the rationale and impact behind this. Welcome, Mr. Francis. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to ask, though, when I hear digitalization, how does it relate to this line ministry? What aspect or aspects of the tourism and creative sectors are you trying to, or does it even make sense to digitalize?
Well, thank you for having me on. The